about that later. So, so then what happened in 1971? Nixon finally defaulted. So what they did in 1933 is they had to pass the statute along with the emergency, which we'll talk about the emergency in a minute. They passed a statute that said, what was it? I'm going to tell you. The Emergency Banking and Relief Act is where they passed a statute that said you couldn't have gold anymore. Oh, you can't have gold. So how do you pass a statute that says we can't have gold when gold is supposed to be the money of the country? Because it says precious metals, gold, Article 1, Section 10, 9, Section 10, yeah. No state shall make anything but gold and silver coin or tender payment of debts. Well, how in the hell can the Congress pass a law that says you can't have gold? That doesn't make any sense. And the fact that if that would ever upheld, I don't think that it was. I don't know of any cases where anybody was punished for not turning in their gold. I think they mainly went after big organizations that got their gold. My grandfather told me about that because he was a banker. An employee of his went in the bank while he was gone, and the Treasury Department showed up, and he went in and got his coin collection. He had a typed coin collection, and he gave it to the government. They gave him the pieces of paper in exchange. When the grandfather got there, he's kind of pissed off, and he said he fired that guy right there on the spot. That's the story he tells me. I'm sticking to it. That's the story he told me. So now, so that was 1971. So Nixon said, "I'm done with that." Well, there was that resolution. It was in 1933, and here it is right here. This is a copy of it. You guys can go look this up. That is the federal. This is a Senate report, 93-549, and this Senate report was issued in 1973 by the United States Senate. Emergency Powers Statute, provisions of federal law now in effect, delegating to the executive extraordinary authority in time of national emergency, is a report on the Special Committee on the Termination of the National Emergency, United States Senate, from November the 19th, 1973. So the forward, there's a forward in here. You can see that. And it says, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. In fact, there are now in effect 4 presidentially proclaimed states of national emergency. In addition to the national emergency declared by President Roosevelt in 1933, there are also the national emergency proclaimed by President Truman on December 16, 1950, during the Korean conflict, and the states of national emergency declared by President Nixon on March 23, 1970, and August 15, 1971. Now I wonder if that has something to do with, okay, now we can get our gold back, because he's saying, I'm not going to redeem the Federal Reserve notes in silver and gold. And see, that's what I was trying to remember earlier. So what happened is, after World War II, the United States money still said redeemable and lawful money at the United States Treasury and Federal Reserve Bank. And that was only silver. So you could go and get the 50-cent pieces at the bank. So they try to play these games with the words. Oh, we have legal tender instead of just tender. And then, I mean, it's all scam trying to get around the limitations of the Constitution. But anyway, so what the French were doing, Charles de Gaulle, he was getting paid, their country, when they were doing trade and stuff, they were getting paid in certificates, gold certificates, Federal Reserve gold certificates. And so what he did, he started saying, okay, well, I'm going to go back over to the United States. I'm going to get my gold. So he would take the papers back that they were getting in trade and stuff from when they traded the United States, and taxes and stuff when the government got it. And he was telling her, hand over the gold. So the government was having to redeem it, and they kept redeeming it, and they got, I don't know how many thousands of tons. But it's several thousands of tons. And it drained the United States Treasury down to about half amount of gold that they originally had. And so, ran out of time. And so that's when Nixon come out and said, oh, we're not going to redeem that anymore. But see, they had already stopped the people from doing it. So that you can see this is a progression. These are the steps that we're seeing move forward to where we don't have anything but piece of paper in our pocket anymore. So anyway, it's interesting because they said that these proclamations give force to 470 provisions of federal law. These hundreds of statutes delegate to the president extraordinary power, et cetera, et cetera. So my understanding, and there's a book you can call by Dr. Gene Schroeder, and you can go find it. It's War and Emergency Powers by Dr. Schroeder. And it goes into all of this. Now, as a result of this, the Republican Party passed a resolution declaring that of Texas that there was this national emergency, and they as part of the platform, they wanted to urge that it get terminated, get rid of this national emergency, because basically what they're doing is saying that we're under wartime and we can do whatever we want under wartime, and pretty much because there's a concept. It's not in the Constitution anywhere except for one kind of side comment, and that is the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus in times of rebellion, invasion, or where that has to be done because they can't follow the rule of the writ of habeas corpus. If you don't know what the writ of habeas corpus is, you need to read the Constitution and pull it up and find out what is the writ of habeas corpus. Because when they arrest somebody unlawfully, any friend or person or whatever can write a writ of habeas corpus out there. Basically, as writ means written, and you can take that document to the judge and say, listen, you need to order the sheriff or the cops to let him go because of whatever the reason is. He didn't do something, or I saw it happen, and they don't have any charges. Nobody got shot. They just grab him and throw him in jail. So that's what a writ of habeas corpus is about when you're being unlawfully held. Okay, let's see here. Now, yeah, so Nixon goes in 1974, says everybody can have gold again, and then so they didn't prosecute anybody, and you can have it again. And then in 1960, the United States government created the Eagle Mint program, where you can go get those silver eagles and gold stuff if you want to get all that. And another interesting thing that I inserted in here was that in 1982, the pennies were changed. Our pennies are no longer copper. They used to be copper. The first pennies that the United States made was called a Fugio cent, big things. And George Washington, I believe, he donated some copperware or something, and they used that metal to make the first coins. But the pennies were the size of a 50-cent piece. And why are they so big? Why? Because they knew the value of what made them valuable was the money. It was the metal in it. It wasn't the fact that it said cent on it, United States cent or whatever on it. It was, well, what am I getting for it? And so anyway, that's what they did. And so in 1982, in the middle of the year, they changed. So now you have the pennies that you have. If you cut them open, you're going to find they're silvery looking inside, because that's zinc. And zinc's a lot less valuable than copper is. So they got zinc inside, and they put a plate of copper copper on the top of it. Now it's 3% copper. The core is 3% copper and 97% zinc, and the outer is just pure copper. I think it's pure copper. It might be the other way around, but it's make it look like it looks the same, but they weigh different. And so let me see. I think that is going to be. Let's see. I got some more notes over here. Yeah, we've got 27 minutes. I do want you to think about something. I'm gonna put a couple things out there to think about, and then I'll do another video on it. What I'm going to talk about next time is the Federal Reserve note that we have in our pocket. The Federal Reserve note authorized in the law, in the statute. What does the word "backed" mean in terms of, oh, it's backed by this? You know, oh, like people are talking about bricks. Oh, we're going to have bricks, it's going to be backed. You really think so? Maybe you should look and find out what backed actually means, or what do you think it means? We're going to talk about the United States Code. What is the United States? We're not talking much of it. Matter of fact, I might do that here in just a second. We got a couple minutes left. So the other thing we have a problem with in our country is that people can't seem to sue the government, stop them from doing this stuff. And because the government and the courts have claimed they're sovereign, that the government is sovereign. And so I don't think that's true. How are you sovereign if you're a fiction? You got no conscience. You got no ability to think. So how are you sovereign? They claim that, oh, because the people delegated their authority to this entity fiction called the government, and therefore the government is sovereign in those matters. And you know, if I have a corporation, and we have a corporation, and you create articles of incorporation, and you have all the rules they run the corporation on and everything, the corporation can't break the law. I mean, you can't delegate authority to steal from people, even if there's no statute about stealing. That's a common law thing. You don't steal. That's illegal. Matter of fact, if you didn't have courts and stuff, you just go out and beat the guy up and get your stuff back, or shoot him, or who knows what might happen. Back in the day, it was not the same as it is now. Let's hope it doesn't get to that other part. So anyway, they say they're sovereign, so I was a fiction sovereign. Now it's going to quit on me in a second. So I want to let y'all know I really appreciate y'all coming and visiting and hanging out with me on this little thing, these little recordings. And I'll do some more, and we'll get the rest of these items on here. And then I want to talk about, you know, how do they actually create the money? How does it get into circulation? So you guys have a great day, and please push the like and subscribe buttons. I appreciate that. Okay, I am back now. This is another video. We're still on the same day, September the 7th, 2024. And I wanted to go ahead and create a separate little video based upon what we were talking about before, because it's on my mind, and it makes it better if I talk about it while I'm thinking about it. And I don't want anybody asking questions, so if you guys ask questions and stuff, I can talk about those things. And when we start doing it live, which I'm going to get pretty close to doing, I still got to get the live software installed on this computer here, and make sure I know how to use it better, and so we can start doing some of those. But in the meantime, backed. Well, let's talk about back before we talk about the Federal Reserve notes. So when you hear people talk about the fact that it's backed or not backed, and what does that exactly mean? Well, how is it backed? In Germany during the World War, with the Weimar Republic, they tried to claim that, you know, farmland and other stuff backed the currency. Oh, it has value because it's backed. The United States government and the Federal Reserve try to say that the Federal Reserve notes are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. Now, I can't find that anywhere, but in a law, but that's what they say. And so what's interesting, so to me, in order to be backed by something, it has to be redeemable for it. You can't sit here and say, well, we're backing this piece of paper with that money over there. Okay, well then here's the paper, I want the money back. Or give me my pencils or whatever it is, but it's got to be redeemable. It's not backed if there's no action or no contract or no agreement to do anything other than just run around calling it back, but there's no action involved on it. Then that's not true. That's a lie. It isn't backed. So unless you can take that piece of paper, basically a bearer certificate of some type that says, you got to give me that when I present this to you, that is backing. That's all that's backing. And don't let anybody blow smoke up your butt telling you that's not true and that it's something else. So this idea we talked about, because that's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about, let's talk about the Federal Reserve notes. So Title 31, United States Code. Let's see. Yeah, okay. You know what? I got this little thing. I tried to dig through this, and I'm going to go through it, and we'll see if we can come up with some more interesting definitions. So, right here. This is, put that up there so you can get a look at it. So it's $1934, $5. Now, I've read this before. And that little writing up here in the, right up here, that little B stuff. That's a whole sentence. It's got a period on it and everything. And right underneath here, it says Federal Reserve note at the top, and it says the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $5. That's interesting. It actually says they're going to pay $5. Well, that means that Federal Reserve note's not $5. That's all that it means. It flat out means it's not $5. is lying. And they're lying about it and saying it's $5 when it's not. But we use things in common language when we don't understand, and we assume, and we all know what the assume word does. It makes the ass out of you and me. And so that's what we do. And so it's not $5. The Federal Reserve note in your pocket is not $5 either. Problem is, we got all kinds of legal paperwork and contracts, and it all says US dollars, US dollars, US dollars. And I don't mean the Federal Reserve notes. So our language is so mixed up. I think the Bible talks about the language. So that was Babel, wasn't it? They confused our language. Well, boy, it's still confused. All right. So when you're backing something, what does it mean? What are you doing? You're redeeming it, right? You're taking it down. You're redeeming it. So redeem. So here's Black's Law Dictionary. You gotta look that up and put it where you all can look at that, and we'll do it. Okay, you can get all that. Now, to redeem, to buy back, to free property of article from a mortgage or a pledge by paying the debt for which it stood as security. To repurchase in a literal sense, as to redeem one's land from the tax sale. It implies the existence of a debt and means to rid the property of that encumbrance. Redeemable is subject to redemption, admitting of redemption for repurchase, given or held under the conditions admitting of the reacquisition by purchase, as in a redeemable pledge. Well, that's what that note said. It says it's redeemable for lawful money at the United States Treasury or at any Federal Reserve Bank. That little writing in the corner I was talking about earlier. It says right there you can redeem it. So we look for redeem. We find out, you're going to get the stuff for it. And then another one was redemption, was repurchase of notes, bonds, stocks, bills, and other evidence of debt. So this is an evidence of debt. This means they owe you money. And when can you get the money? When you walk down there and you give it to them, and then you get the real stuff, not this fake stuff. It's just, this is no different than writing you a check. They write you a check saying that it's if you wrote a check out for so many dollars and you take it to the bank and they don't give you the money for it, then they dishonored the check. And as a matter of fact, somebody wrote a hot check. And the same thing for this. This is a hot check because they don't redeem it anymore. So how can the government have hot checks? How can the government do all this stuff that it's doing? If you put on your thinking cap and you focus your attention, you're going to think about this for a second. The Constitution and the Declaration of Independence says that we delegated our authority to the government. So the Declaration of Independence says that the legislative power, go look it up, the legislative power, was returned to the people from the king because the king violated the contract, Magna Carta, and the laws and rights of Englishmen. And he reneged on it. He canceled the agreement where the people delegated their authority to him. Now the king wants to say, well, they didn't do that. Well, the way you got your authority is, the divine right of kings. So the Pope goes and says that guy's a king, so he's the king. And that's where your titles, your land titles, you track them all down, they all go back to the Pope, back to the Vatican. Claiming that he had the power over the whole world because he said he's the vicar of Christ, and Christ owns the whole planet according to the Bible, and therefore, since he's the representative of Christ, he gets to be the boss and run everything. And then the queens and the kings and stuff, it's delegated to them, and they claim they still own it. So anyway, okay, paper currency, money. So this said, repurchase of none. Okay, so let's talk about money. Money's interesting. This is from Black's Law Fixed Dictionary, the 5th dictionary. Right there. Another definition. Definitions are good. You get to find some things out when you learn the definitions of words. And it says money. In the usual and ordinary acceptation, like acceptance, it means coins and paper currency. Paper currency. Used as circulating medium of exchange and does not embrace notes, bonds, evidences of debt, or other personal real estate. Now, isn't that crazy? That doesn't make any sense if you really think about it. Paper currency is notes, bills, bonds, debt. It's evidence of debt. the bills were debt. It said it right there on that continental currency we looked at the other day. We looked at earlier today, the earlier video. It said right there that that this currency is a note. So, all right. So now let's look at the next word. Note: an instrument containing an express and absolute promise of the signer, who's the maker, to pay to the specified person or order or bearer a definite sum of money at a specified time. So they got a little more stuff in here, and have uniform commercial UCC. That stuff says UCC. That's Uniform Commercial Code. Trying to create a uniform commercial code all over the place. That's another body of law called commercial law that most of the average person doesn't understand all the ins and outs of that. So it's a note. A note's paper money. So this is what happens is you start getting in a circular definition. Okay? A note is a promise of payer, but a note cannot be money. But then they say currency is a money. This thing is talking out of both sides of its mouth. I mean, both sides of its mouth. It says on the one hand, it's paper currency. And we know that paper currency are notes. Or bills, which is a note. It's a synonym. They're the same damn thing. That doesn't make any sense. All right. But a note is a contract, isn't it? If you have a piece of paper, that was a contract that between two parties. And you take that note, that contract, and you go get it redeemed, and the contract gets fulfilled when they give you the money. Now the contract's over with. So this is the definition of contract in Black's Law Fifth Dictionary. All the lawyers and stuff. When it comes to the currency, they start ignoring it. They don't want to talk about it. They're claiming that this is what they're going to follow, but they don't. So this says a writing which contains the obligation. Okay? Agreement of parties with terms and conditions which serves as proof of the obligation. So it's an obligation. That's a note. We're right back there to the note thing. So here, let's get to this one. So we've already defined these words now. Currency, promissory note, note, obligation. We just said it's an obligation, right? Here's what the Federal Reserve note is. Okay? Federal Reserve note. It says, Federal Reserve note is a form of currency. Oh, wait a minute, wait. What's currency? And this is currency. Read that. These are all Black's Fifth Law Dictionary definitions. Currency, coined money, and such banknotes or other paper money. So they're telling you right there that banknotes are paper money. You see, it's just crazy, and we don't know this. We're not taught in school. All of us should know. We should all be taught this sort of stuff in our school. Learn these things so we know where this stuff is. It's right out there playing in front of us, but we are so ignorant of it because they never taught you. They thought, I want to send my kid to college or high school and let them take care of it. I did the same. I told my kids a lot more stuff, but the bottom line is, most people, including what happened to me when I was growing up, parents just send you out and go to school, and that stranger that they don't even know is going to teach you, which is not a good idea. So this says right here, so we're going to look at banknote. There's banknote. A banknote, a promissory note, issued by a bank or a banker authorized to do so, payable to the bearer on demand. That said payable to the bearer on demand. This piece of paper right here did. Right there, banknote. Note's a contract. But it's not money, according to the other definition. And then another definition says it is the same thing. All right, so, oh yeah, that's another funny part. It says, see Federal Reserve notes. Right there on the very last thing. See Federal Reserve notes. So they're notes. They're bank notes. They're notes. IOU debt currency. All right, now, so Federal Reserve notes. So now we're going to go back to Federal Reserve notes. So there's a currency. It said, banknote is this. And then it says it's currency. The other one said currency. So this says Federal Reserve notes are a form of currency. Wait a minute. Currency's, something's wrong. That's not money. Issued by Federal Reserve banks in the likeness of non-interest bearing promissory note. So how can it be currency anyway? Payable to bear on demand, Federal Reserve note, e.g. the $1, $5, $10 bill, whatever, is most widely used paper currency. Such have replaced silver and gold certificates, which were backed by silver and gold, because you could redeem them. And Federal Reserve notes used to be able to do that too. Now remember, this book, when was this published? This was published, oh, I think it was fairly recently, which is kind of interesting. They're picking up 1979. So we still had these phony monies in our pocket. So how are they telling me that they're promissory notes and all that? If Federal Reserve notes are promissory notes, if you can't get anything for them, and they're notes at all because they're not redeemable. It's insane. Okay. Such reserve notes are direct obligations of the United States. Wait a minute. Obligation of the United States? How in the world can they be obligations of the United States when what are they obligated to do? If I have a contract with somebody and I'm obligated to do something for that contract, I got to do it or I'm in violation of my contract. Well, how come the government can violate the contracts? It was delegated authority through our legal system, our legal process of creating the government in the first place. Our authority. Our authority. Do I have the authority to steal from somebody by not meeting my obligations and not, I'm promising, okay, I'll give you this, I promise you the deal, well, the deal, you shake your hands, and then I walk off with the money and you don't get to keep it? I think that's larceny. And that's not embezzlement. I don't think it's larceny. But I'm not sure. I'm not an attorney, so I don't really know the answer to that. I have to look it up too. Go find what's larceny. I looked that up in the book. And it's in there. Now, it said, I just found that one where it said in like. Where was the word like? Ah, yeah. So back to the Federal Reserve note definition. It says, form of currency issued by Federal Reserve banks in the likeness of non-interest bearing promissory note. Well, we have the word of like. This is how you look at law stuff. Every time you see a word in there in a statute, go get your law dictionary. Go find the statute. It says the law, the words mean this over here. If it's not real clear. If it doesn't have a definition of it in the statute in somewhere, then normally that either means you have to go look for the law dictionary. That's primarily where it comes from, or it comes from English, regular everyday English language. Like, equal in quantity, quality, or degree, or exactly corresponding. It also means having the same or nearly the same appearance, qualities, or characteristics. It's substantially similar. And you probably could go look up and see what substantially similar is. But so the paper money that we have, that you have in your pocket, so I'm not going to get it out, it looks kind of like that, doesn't it? But it's not substantially the same because it's not redeemable, and this one is supposed to be. And it was back when they issued it. And let's go ahead and touch base on a promissory note. Don't keep getting lost. We're going to get too many things up here. Promissory note. A promise or an engagement in writing to pay a specified sum at a time therein limited, or demand at sight to a person therein named, or to his order or bearer. Okay? So that's Black's Law, and it talks about what a promissory note is. Now they're telling us the Federal Reserve notes are obligations of the United States. Now those ones that you could get the money for, that makes sense. That's a note. It says it's going to pay on demand. And what's it going to pay? $5. Problem is, what's $5? Well, we already talked about what that is. And a promise. So we go back to the word promise. Now this is interesting. This is Black's Law 5th Dictionary right here. Down here at the bottom I got it highlighted in yellow, and that's restatement of the law. This says, understanding that a commitment has been made. Restatement, second contracts. Section 2. So I don't remember too much exactly, but bottom line is, restatement of the law is taking the law and explaining it. And the courts all follow this thing. So you can go look that up. Look up Statement of Law if you want to. It's published books, and they use it in precedents. As you'll see it in Supreme Court state decisions and other court cases, they quote the Restatement of Law as authority. because it's all supposed to be based on constitutional law and all the holdings and rulings and stuff that's happened in the past. So, Restatement, second edition says it's a commitment. Now, can you delegate authority to violate your commitments to a third party? Can you do that? You don't have authority to violate your commitments, at least not without having to pay for it, pay a price. And so how do we delegate that power to the federal government? How does that happen? Okay, paper money. So here's one Black's Law talks about paper money. And it says, bills drawn by a government against its own credit, engaging to pay money, but which do not profess to be immediately convertible into specie. Well, that's interesting. They're saying specie money. Okay? And which are put into compulsory circulation as a substitute for coin money. That's what a bit paper money is. Well, we already know the Constitution founders said no paper money. And they knew bills like that is what they were talking about. Draw. The word draw. So you always look at these things and find the words that make sense. And you think, oh, draw, I know what that means. You need to go look it up because you don't necessarily. But to draw in the sense, not draw your, so the first thing is to draw a firearm or a deadly weapon. So you whip out the gun. But they mean to draw a bill of exchange, check, or draft is to write. So drawing and writing. Or cause it to be written and sign it to make it as a note. So you're drawing it on the bank, on the credit of the United States, it's a note. To withdraw money, to take out money from a bank, treasury, or other depository in the exercise of a lawful right in a lawful manner. So you have a lawful right to get that money. And if they don't pay it to you, they're a bankrupt. Or they're a criminal, one of the two. Maybe both, who knows. So this all comes back to this emergency thing. I mean, you got to think about that. Is the government really bankrupt? And it has been for a long time? And we just don't know that? I don't know. I didn't get all into that stuff, but just throw it out there for you to think about. Okay. Notes issued. Okay, so this came from the Federal Reserve Act, and it came from the Board of the Federal Reserve off their website, www.federalreserve.gov. Right here. See this little paper? And you guys can look this up. I'm doing it so you can freeze it, and you can look at it if you want to. And it says that Federal Reserve notes, the said notes, so this is issuance of Federal Reserve notes, nature of obligation, and where they're redeemable. This is in the Federal Reserve Act, Section 16. And it says, the said notes shall be obligations of the United States. Obligations, what? To do what? I'll tell you in a second. And shall be receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. They shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States, in the City of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve bank. The Treasury Department. Now, you know, that's a funny thing to call it that. The Treasury Department. If you look it up, I think they call themselves the Department of the Treasury. And that ain't the same name. Something to think about. Okay. Okay, so this was interesting. This came off of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System's website. Right here. I don't know how you can find it. You can search it. Yeah, what is lawful money was the question. And they say... They're saying that they said the Federal Reserve Act states that the Federal Reserve, this is current stuff, shall be obligations of the United States and shall be receivable by all national member banks and Federal Reserve banks and for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. They shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States in the City of Washington, blah, blah, blah. That still says. But then they're going to tell you, here's what they're going to tell you. The Act did not, however, define the term lawful money. Oh, that's a little tricky thing, right? Lawful money. That's unlawful money then, isn't it? But up until 1913, only currency, which we already figured out currencies are notes. Notes are, it's like circle. It goes around a circle. issued by the United States that was legally recognized as lawful money, as was various issues of demand notes, subsequently known as old demand notes, and the United States notes authorized by Congress during the Civil War. Now, I looked at looked up these demand notes, treasury notes. A treasury note is where you go buy the thing. You give the government the money, and they give you a treasury note, pays interest, and later you go back and redeem it and get the money. So treasury notes are purchased with real dollars, supposed to be, and they're not currency because they're not intended. Treasury notes are not intended to circulate as money. They're just intended for you to hold it like a savings bond, and you don't use it for money. So if we were all taught things and understood what's really going on, maybe we could put a stop to it, or maybe it's going to stop itself. I don't know that you really have to go doing anything. I think bottom line is you got to learn, know the truth, know what's going on. So when it does fall apart, which it will because it's a Ponzi scheme, we will be supporting a replacement system that's honest and fair, and doesn't cause all the misery that this massive debt system is causing us. Because we haven't talked about it much, but the mechanism, and I've got 5 minutes before this thing's going to quit. The mechanism that they use to create these notes is you go to the bank, and they claim that an IOU is an asset. So in accounting in the United States or in the world, you have assets, which are stuff like this mouse, right? Physical things that you own, that's an asset. Then they kind of try to tell you that, and then liabilities is money and stuff you owe. And then there's this quasi-category that they claim as assets. They categorize it as assets too, but it's IOUs from somebody else. So if somebody owes you, they have a debt to you, they claim that's an asset too. So then they consider your assets and your liabilities, and here's your net worth and all that. Well, what if the guy don't pay? The banks are claiming that all the debt out there is all assets. But what if it's not possible to pay it? If I borrow a bunch of money from the bank and I lose all my arms and legs, and I've got money still in the bank, and I can't do it with my hands, I'll get my wife to do it maybe, but anyway, I can get the money out of the bank and pay the note that we owe the bank. But the problem is I only got $100. I only got $10,000, and I owe $50,000 or $200,000, and I don't have any way of earning money or making more money to pay the bank. So the bank is carrying that note as a good note. It's good. We could sell it to somebody else. It's a great note. But the fact is, it ain't worth shit because it's only worth whatever I continue to pay for it out of my little measly $10,000 sitting over here. And so they're claiming that that's an asset. And the books still say that it's all an asset. So if you were to look at the books of the bank, oh, it looks great. Never mind the fact that the guy can't pay the debt, and it's not a good debt. So that's a real big problem, and we need to really have a separate category when you're recording books. And they list accounts receivable. They do list it, but they don't really separate collateralized accounts receivable, uncollateralized accounts receivable, and they call it a asset, and they shouldn't. They need to just have it separate. Okay, here's how much they owe us. Here's what our real assets are. Here's what our debt is. And here's the real situation. We have this much in real assets, and that's we're this much in the hole on non-accounts receivable money, but then we have accounts receivable, and it's this big. Now you got a really understanding of how a business is, understood their financial position, so that you can understand what it is. So anyway, one last little thing. First off, if everybody will please subscribe and like my video, I would sure appreciate that. We're going to do some pretty interesting things going forward at some point in the not too distant future, and I want you guys to please put comments or questions, especially any questions you want to ask. I'll get the questions, and I'll make video every once in a while. It'll be question and answer day or something, and we can maybe even talk about some of these things when I'm eventually doing the live salon type stuff that I'm definitely going to be working on once I get the technical details all figured out. Because I might know a lot about computers, but every software is different. Just because I can figure it out fast. But this is interesting. Look at here. Look at that little piece of paper there. And it talks about where the dollar sign came from. This is from the House of History of U.S. Currency, uscurrency.gov/history. And they said adoption of dollar sign. The United States officially adopted the dollar sign in 1785 as a symbol evolved from Spanish American figure for pesos. So they took a P and an S and superimposed it on each other, and they came up with a single S with a dollar sign. Isn't that interesting? And US is supposed to be a U on top of an S, and it's supposed to be looking like that with 2 bars. Why is it that all of our money symbols are looking like that? I thought that was an interesting little question. Just something to think about. Put in your hat. And if you have some inputs on any of this crazy stuff I've said, or don't think I'm right, or aren't sure, want any more clarity, please do that. And also subscribe and like and all that good stuff everybody tells you to do. I would appreciate it greatly. And pass it on to your friends, because it's going to keep getting interesting. And we're going to keep talking about some pretty cool stuff. And I'll get you guys to start understanding that don't understand how things really work, and put questions in your mind and make you learn how to look at things with more discernment. So I appreciate it. Love all you guys. Thank you very much. See ya.